So, good morning, students. We continue with the Merchant of Venice, and today we will be finishing off with Act 1 and moving on to Act 2. And Act 2 is the first scene of Act 2 will bring us to the very first suitor of Portia who wants to try his luck in the lottery of 3 caskets. So we shall see. But before that, let's go to the place from where we have to begin today. You must remember that we were on page 43 and I am scrolling up now to page 43. So this is page 43 on your screen, and you can see that we had come to the portion where Antonio was trying to give this assurance to his friend Bassanio that he need not worry, as his ships would be returning to the harbor of Venice within 2 months, and so it will not be a problem at all for him to pay off Shylock because they were borrowing 3,000 ducats for 3 months only, and his ships were supposed to return within a couple of months. So we continue from line 159 of page 43. Please take out your textbooks and come to this page, which you can see on your screen, and let's continue. Shylock, in the meantime, can hear the conversation between Bassanio and Antonio, and so he remarks, "Oh, Father Abram, what these Christians are." Father Abram is supposed to be the founder of the Jewish race. That's why Shylock refers to Father Abram, and he says, he is expressing his surprise about the Christians, whose own hard dealings teaches them suspect the thoughts of others. These Christians, they deal in a very hard way with others, and so they do not trust the deals of others. Just because they have their hard dealing attitude with people, they cannot trust others, and therefore they are not able to trust me. Pray you, tell me this: if he should break his day, what should I gain by the exaction of the forfeiture? So I request you, please tell me. Pray you means I request you, please tell me, if suppose Antonio fails to pay back the borrowed amount, what will I gain by taking that kind of penalty? The penalty which he has mentioned earlier will be mentioned in the deed of agreement for the borrowing. It will be mentioned in the bond. It will be signed and sealed and validated by both Antonio and Shylock, and the condition is that if Antonio fails to pay, then Antonio has to give a pound of his own flesh, which Shylock will cut off from any part of his body he wishes to. That's why Shylock is saying, I request you to tell me, what will I gain out of taking a pound of flesh if Antonio fails to pay back? A pound of man's flesh taken from a man is not so estimable, profitable neither. Pound of flesh taken from the body of a man is not really anything valuable. Estimable means valuable, meaning is given alongside. You can have a look. What will I gain by taking something which is not valuable at all? It's neither valuable nor profitable. With that pound of flesh, what will I do? Human flesh, a pound of human flesh, will be of no use virtually to me. As flesh of muttons, beefs or goats, pound of human flesh cannot be compared to a pound of mutton or a pound of beef or a pound of goat flesh. At least those kinds of flesh can at least be eaten or consumed. But a pound of human flesh is of no use. So what will I gain? Actually, this is something which is not going to give me any kind of profit. I say, to buy his favor, I extend this friendship. I am just trying to extend this helping hand to Antonio so that we can become friends and so that I can be favored by him, so that I am favored by him for having helped him. So that is my only intention. I have no other reason for mentioning a pound of human flesh in the bond, because that pound of human flesh is actually of no use to me. So I am just extending this helping hand to buy Antonio's favor, so that henceforth he has a favorable attitude towards me, so that we become friends. That's what. If he will take it, so; if not, adieu. Now, if he wants to take this offer of mine, then well and good. Otherwise, goodbye. Adieu means goodbye. So, if you want to take or accept this offer of mine, then let's go ahead with it. Then let it be so. And if you don't want to take my offer, then goodbye to you. So, this is Shylock's. And then he continues. We move on to page 44. He says, "And for my love, I pray you, wrong me not." Meaning is explained, you can see. "But do not be unjust to me for offering this act of love." I am trying to offer my friendly, loving attitude. I am extending a helping hand. If you don't want to take it, don't take it. But don't misjudge me. Do not judge me as a villain. You are doing me wrong by thinking like that about me. So you see, Shylock is trying to convince Antonio and Bassanio with such words. Antonio responds to Shylock's comment and says, "Yes, Shylock, I will seal unto this bond." Yes, Shylock, I am ready to put my seal and signature into this bond. Let's do it. Shylock says, "Then meet me forthwith at the notary's. Give him direction for this merry bond." Then, if you really are serious about signing this agreement, then go to the lawyer who prepares such documents. He is called a notary. Such a lawyer who prepares documents of agreements between two parties is called a notary. So go to the notary and give him necessary directions to prepare the deed of the agreement. This happy bond, this merry bond, this funny bond, humorous bond, which we are going to sign, both of us. So go and tell the notary everything, and I will go and purse the ducats straight. In the meantime, you go to the notary, you go to the lawyer, ask him, give him all the directions, let him type and let him prepare. Well, not type exactly, there were no typewriters at that time, maybe handwritten. So go to the lawyer and tell him to prepare the bond while I will go and collect the money and put it in my purse, and then I will come and meet you. We already know that Shylock has said that he will borrow some money from his friend, his Jewish friend, and he will provide 3,000 ducats to Antonio for Bassanio. So he says, I will go and collect. In the meantime, I will go and collect the money. You can go to the notary and you can give him directions as to how to prepare the document. See to my house, left in the fearful guard of an unthrifty knave, and presently I'll be with you. And after that, I will go to my house, I will have a look at my house, because I have left my house in the hands of a profitless, useless servant. Knave here refers to one who is not trained properly, one who is not civilized, one who is too ordinary and simple, and one who is crude, or one who is not really suitable to be a servant. So I have left my house in the hands of such a knave. I will just go and have a look at my house, and presently I'll be with you, and after that I will come and meet you within a short time. I will go and collect the money first from my friend Then I will go to my house, I'll check my house whether everything is all right there or not, and then I will come and meet you at the place where the notary sits. Antonio says, "Hi thee, gentle Jew." Okay, hurry up, gentle Jew. Now, for the first time ever, Antonio speaks in such moderate terms about Shylock, calls him a gentle Jew. Okay, hurry up, gentle Jew. Saying this, when he says this, Shylock leaves the scene, exits Shylock. The Hebrew will turn Christian, he grows kind. This Hebrew, meaning this Jew, will soon become a Christian because he is becoming kinder day by day. That he has agreed to give us the money shows that he is growing kinder day by day. So I have this feeling that very soon, someday, this guy or this man, Shylock, is going to become a Christian. Bassanio is not happy after all. So he says, "I like not fair terms and a villain's mind." Apparently, kin words offered by a villain's mind. I don't like such mild and soft and gentle words coming out of the mouth of a man who has the mind of a villain. So Bassanio is still doubting Shylock. Bassanio is still not sure whether Antonio should take such a risk for him. So Bassanio says these words. Antonio says, "Come on, in this there can be no dismay. Come on, there can be no reason for us to fear in this matter. My ships come home a month before the day. My ships will return home a month before the day of payment arrives. That means my ships will come home within 2 months, and the date of payment for the repayment, the date which is set, will be only after 1 more month after that. So we will have enough time, so don't worry." Saying this, both Antonio and Bassanio leave the scene. So with this, we come to the end of this scene. Now we move on to the next scene. As I was telling you, Act 2, Scene 1. On your screen, you can see the first page of this scene. This is page 45. And there is an introduction given. Let us go through the introduction. Let us try to understand what this scene contains. This scene begins with a lot of pomp, lot of display of lot of show, something grand, something very, very pompous or showy. There's a lot of show in this scene. Let's see what happens. Both visual and verbal. Visual pomp, you can see things happening in a grand style, in a grand manner, and then you can hear some dialogue or some conversation, some speeches which are also given with lot of pomp and show. It is marked by the entrance of the Prince of Morocco. The Prince of Morocco comes from the country of Morocco, which is an African country across the Mediterranean Sea. So we see Belmont. Once again, we have moved from Venice to Belmont, place where Portia lives, and we have been here before. So this scene once again takes us to Belmont, and there in Portia's palace, we meet Portia, Nerissa, all the attendants, and of course Morocco, the prince, who arrives to take part in the lottery of the 3 caskets, gold, silver and lead. We already know that the previous suitors of Portia, after having heard the terms and conditions of Portia's father's will, have decided, or rather had decided, not to participate in this kind of lottery and had gone back. But now we have Prince of Morocco who decides to participate, and he is here. So the Prince of Morocco is one of the suitors of Portia. He is of dark complexion, yet confident of his charm and valor. Portia forewarns him that if he fails in his choice of the casket, He would never in his lifetime woo a lady. Woo means to propose, to urge a lady to marry him. So, this is what Portia tells very clearly to Morocco. The scene provides all the necessary information about the lottery of caskets and the conditions attached to those who make the effort. It also highlights the themes of prejudice. What is prejudice? When you have a grudge or a dislike for someone in your heart and you behave accordingly, that's called prejudice. So, themes of prejudice based on racial and religious differences. Now, the Prince of Morocco is a black and Portia is white. So, there is a racial difference. One is African, the other is European, and then religion wise as well, because Portia is a Christian and the Prince of Morocco is most probably a Muslim. So, racial and religious prejudice is brought out in this scene, along with gambling, games, and chants. So, we have this theme of gambling because this is nothing but a game of gambling. You can say it's a game of chance. There are 3 boxes, and only one contains Portia's portrait. And the one who chooses the correct box gets to marry Portia. Will the Prince of Morocco be able to choose the right box? We shall see. Scene 1. Belmont, a room in Portia's house. Flourish of cornets. So, musical instruments are played to announce the arrival of the prince. Enter the Prince of Morocco and his train. This train refers to the followers or the people who are with the prince. Group of people, officers, servants, attendants, so many people, because he is a prince. So he has so many people moving or following him, moving along with him. Nerissa, Portia, Nerissa, and other of her attendants. So these people are also present. So this is a big room where there are 3 caskets standing on a table, and there's a curtain before it. Now Portia and Morocco will have some conversation. Let's try to see what the Prince of Morocco says. This speech of Morocco is important for reference to the context type questions. Morocco says, "Mislike me not for my complexion, the shadowed livery of the burnished sun. Do not dislike me because of my skin color, my complexion." Complexion also means nature, but in this case it can imply both. By nature and by skin color, I am so different. Because of that, do not dislike me. The shadowed livery of the burnished sun. This complexion which I have, the dark complexion, the dark skin which I have, is a gift of the shining sun, because I live in a country which is close to the equator. He goes on to say, the burning bright sun, to whom I am a neighbor, because I belong to an equatorial country. Morocco, if you see the map of Africa, you will find that Morocco is a country situated on the northwestern corner of Africa, which is close to the equator and below the Mediterranean Sea. So that is the reason the Prince of Morocco says, I am a neighbor of the sun and near bred. That is, I am closely related or brought up together. I am closely related to the sun. I consider myself to be related to the sun. I come from the sun country which has a lot of sun round the year. And so I am born and brought up there. So don't dislike me because of my dark skin. Bring me the fairest creature northward born, where Phoebus' fire scarce thaws the icicles. I can put a challenge before you. Go and bring any person who has been born in the extreme north of the earth, where the rays of the sun, Phoebus refers to the sun god, where the rays of the sun hardly ever touches the icicles. What are icicles? These are long, hardened structures of ice formed in very cold places. So he says, go and get me a creature, any creature for that matter, any human being or maybe a non-human being, any creature born in the northernmost part of the world where the rays of the sun hardly ever reach or touch the icicles. And let us make incision for your love, and then let both of us cut ourselves a bit. For the sake of your love, let us make incision. Let us make cuts in our bodies just for the sake of your love. And then to prove whose blood is reddest, so that when we cut ourselves and the blood flows from the injury or the wound, let us then compare and see whose blood is the reddest. Now, in those times, there was a common belief, as you can see given alongside, reference to the old belief that the most courageous man had reddest blood. The most courageous man had the reddest blood, while a coward had a pale colored blood. So I am ready to challenge any person who is born in the north, who has a fair complexion. Let both of us cut ourselves to let out some blood from our bodies, and then let's compare the color of our blood, and I can say for certain my blood will be the reddest, not his. So this proves that I am more courageous, more valorous than any white man. So Prince of Morocco has a very high opinion about himself, about his own courage, his valor, his greatness. So he is a boastful individual. He's boasting. And then he says, I tell thee, lady, this aspect of mine hath feared the valiant. This aspect of my nature, of my character, of my very being has even caused fear in the hearts of the most courageous. Even the most valiant or the most courageous have been scared of me because I am so brave. By my love, I swear, the best regarded virgins of our clime have loved it too. In the name of my love for you, I can swear, my lady, that the best of the girls, the virgins, the maidens or the young girls of my country have also admired me for my courage. So I have many admirers among the young maidens of my country. They all love me, many of them. They are interested in me and they want to marry me. But look at me. For the sake of your love, I have come all the way across the Mediterranean Sea. Because I love you, Portia. Those girls in my country, they are very fond of me, they love me, but I have not accepted their love. They know I am so courageous. I have many admirers among the girls. But here I am standing before you because I love you. I would not change this hue except to seal, or rather steal your thoughts. I am not ready to change this quality of mine. I am not ready to change this quality which I have, except to steal your thoughts, my gentle queen. Only for the sake of you, I am ready to change myself, otherwise not. Because you are my gentle queen. Even before he has succeeded in the lottery of the caskets, Prince of Morocco has started calling Portia his queen. Now, I am sure even Portia feels very irritated, and of course she has to be polite because after all Morocco is her guest. But at the same time, she must be feeling quite irritated by this attitude of Morocco, who has a very high opinion about himself and is boasting about his own courage. And he's calling her his queen already. Portia responds, "In terms of choice, I am not solely led by nice direction of a maiden's eyes." Well, what can I say? In terms of choice, in terms of making a choice, I am not led alone by what my eyes tell me or show me. I have the eyes of a maiden. I am still not married. I am a maiden. And with my eyes, I can see everyone, including you, Prince of Morocco. But let me tell you that it is not merely by what I see that I can choose someone. It's not merely by what I see that I can choose someone and marry someone. There are other terms and conditions. So she goes on to speak about that. In terms of choice, as regards the conditions of choice, I am not entirely influenced by the attractive looks which please the eyes of a maiden. We move on to the next page, page 46. Besides, the lottery of my destiny bars me the right of voluntary choosing. And apart from that, the fact that my fate depends on luck, that also is another factor which stops me from making a choice. I don't have the right to choose voluntarily anyone I feel like. There is this lottery which is supposed to decide my future. So one has to go through this lottery. Only then I can become somebody's wife. But if my father had not scanted me and hedged me by his wit, but then if my father had not deprived me of free choice, of making a free choice, and had not hedged me or bound me by means of his wisdom, my father was very wise, and he has left me bound. By his wisdom, he has devised a lottery, and one who wants to marry me must choose me only after they are successful in this lottery, by participating in this lottery. So, I am not entirely free to make my own choice. To yield myself his wife who wins me by that means, I told you. So if my father had not put me under such terms and conditions, and if my future of marrying someone would not have been bound by the terms and conditions of this lottery of 3 caskets, then my fair prince, my renowned prince, you yourself would also have stood a fair chance as any other suitor I have looked on yet for my affection. So I could have selected you. I could have chosen you. Meaning is given alongside. Then, noble prince, you would stand as high in my estimation as any other suitor I have seen so far. So Portia very cleverly dodges the approach of Morocco and says that, see, I simply cannot choose by my own free will. I have to move according to my father's will, which is through the lottery of caskets. Otherwise, you stood a fair chance just like any other suitor who came here with the intention to marry me. So, Prince of Morocco, that is all I can say. And Morocco feels very happy, and whatever Morocco goes on to say, we will be taking up again in our next video. So we have come to page 46 and we have started off with Act 2 Scene 1, and we are here at line number 22, and we will begin or continue